The trophy was midair when Grace realized she wasn't going to duck fast enough. 7 months pregnant, standing in her millionaire husband's private study, about to learn that correcting him at dinner would cost her everything. The solid silver polo trophy hit her temple with a crack that sounded almost hollow. Grace fell. Blood pooled on the Persian rug. And Preston? He poured himself scotch. Told her she was being dramatic. But Grace did something Preston never planned for. She called her mother, not just any mother, Dr. Catherine Whitman, renowned neurosurgeon, the kind of woman who doesn't just save her daughter's life. She destroys the man who tried to end it. What happened next became a legal war that exposed secrets Preston had hidden for years. A first wife with the same injury, $50,000 paid to Grace's therapist, offshore accounts, surveillance. A conspiracy so detailed it took years to build. This is the story of how a pregnant woman with a brain injury took on a millionaire and won $12 million, full custody of her daughter, and something even more valuable, her freedom. Stay until the end, because what Grace discovered about Preston's past will shock you, and what she built from the wreckage will inspire you. The trophy was midair when Grace realized she wasn't going to duck fast enough. The Caldwell estate sat on 5 acres in Greenwich, Connecticut. Old money architecture with new money renovations. Grace had spent an hour selecting her outfit that evening. A silk maternity dress in navy blue. Modest, elegant, the kind of dress that said she understood her role as Preston Caldwell's wife. She stood in his private study now, 7 months pregnant, her hand resting on the swell of her belly where their daughter moved and kicked. The room smelled like leather and expensive scotch. Mahogany everything. Walls lined with trophies. Preston called it his trophy room. Grace had learned not to suggest he donate any to charity. The polo tournament trophy was solid silver, 2 feet tall, a mounted horse and rider frozen mid-swing. Preston had won it 3 weeks ago at the Greenwich Polo Club. He'd kissed Grace in front of the Vanderbilts, made her feel chosen, special. Now that same trophy spun through the air toward her head. Grace saw it coming. Saw Preston's arm extend, saw the calculation in his eyes. Not hot anger, cold precision. She tried to move. Her pregnant body was slow, ungainly. 7 months of carrying another human made her clumsy. The trophy connected with her left temple. The sound wasn't dramatic, almost hollow, like knocking on a door, but the impact sent Grace to her knees. Her hand went automatically to her head, touched wetness, looked at her fingers. Red. Blood ran down her hand, down her wrist, dripped onto the Persian rug that cost more than most people's cars. The baby kicked, hard, as if reacting to Grace's shock, as if saying, "Mom, what just happened?" Grace looked up at Preston. He stood by his mahogany desk, his arms still extended from the throw. His Rolex caught the light, $20,000 on his wrist. His custom suit was perfectly pressed, charcoal gray, tailored in London. He looked like he always looked. Successful, handsome, in control. His face wasn't angry anymore. It was blank. The rage had been replaced by something worse. Cold calculation. Like he was already planning his next move. "You embarrassed me," he said. His voice was flat, matter of fact, like he was commenting on the weather. In front of the Vanderbilts. Grace tried to speak. Her tongue felt thick. The words tangled together. Preston, I'm bleeding. The baby. Should have thought about the baby before you contradicted me at dinner." Dinner. Grace's mind struggled to focus. They'd hosted the Vanderbilts, 8 courses, wine pairings. Preston had been talking about a painting in their collection, a Monet. He'd said it was from 1873. Grace had corrected him, gently, so gently. "I think it's actually from 1874, darling, the gallery catalog." She'd watched his jaw tighten, watched the vein in his temple pulse. But he'd smiled, laughed, said, "My wife, the art expert. I defer to her knowledge." Everyone had laughed. The Vanderbilts had complimented Grace's eye. The dinner had continued. Grace had thought she was safe, had thought he'd let it go. She should have known better. Her vision blurred, doubled. She saw 2 Prestons standing by the desk, both of them watching her bleed on the rug. Grace reached for her phone on the side table. Her fingers wouldn't cooperate. She fumbled with it, dropped it, picked it up again. She unlocked the screen, locked it, unlocked it, locked it, unlocked it. Her fingers knew the pattern, but couldn't execute. Like her brain and her hands weren't communicating properly. The baby kicked again, harder this time, almost painful. "Preston," Grace whispered, "please, something's wrong." He finally moved, not toward her, toward the bar cart. Crystal decanters. He poured himself scotch. Macallan 25 year, $2,000 a bottle. He'd told Grace that when he bought it. Told her the price of everything, reminded her that everything she touched belonged to him. "You're fine," he said, sipped his scotch. "Head wounds always bleed like that. You're being dramatic." But Grace wasn't fine. The room tilted. She pressed her hand harder against her temple. The spot where the trophy connected felt wrong. Soft, pulsing. She could feel her heartbeat in the wound. Feel the blood pumping out with each beat. She managed to dial. Not Preston's private doctor. The one on retainer who'd smoothed over problems before. The one who never asked questions. The one who understood that men like Preston Caldwell didn't have problems. They had situations that required discretion. Grace called her mother. Dr. Catherine Whitman answered on the first ring. Neurosurgeon's habit, always available for emergencies. Grace had grown up hearing that ringtone at all hours. Dinner interrupted. Christmas morning paused. Her mother saving lives while Grace learned that some things were more important than family time. "Grace?" "Mom." The word came out thick, slurred, like Grace had been drinking, but she hadn't touched alcohol in 7 months, not since the pregnancy test. "Preston threw something, hit my head. I'm pregnant. The baby." Catherine's voice changed, not mother anymore. "Surgeon." "Where did it hit you, exactly?" "Temple, left side, blood." "I can't. Words aren't." "I'm in New York. I'm coming now. Call 911. Now, Grace. I'm staying on the line." Preston heard. His jaw tightened. He set down his scotch, walked toward Grace. Not rushing, never rushing. Control was everything to Preston, even now, especially now. "Don't be ridiculous," he said. His voice was still calm, reasonable. "I'll take you to Dr. Morrison in the morning if you're still fussing about it." But Grace was already speaking to the dispatcher, giving the address, trying to stay conscious. The room kept tilting, like she was on a boat, like the floor was moving under her. "Ma'am, I need you to stay on the line. Help is on the way. Can you tell me what happened?" Grace looked at Preston. He shook his head. Small movement, warning. My husband, he threw." "She fell," Preston said loudly, speaking over Grace. "My wife fell, hit her head on the corner of the desk. She's pregnant. I'm very worried about the baby." "No," Grace said. "He threw trophy at me." "Ma'am, stay with me. Stay conscious. The ambulance is 3 minutes away." Grace tried to stay present, tried to focus, but the room kept spinning. She lay down on the rug, expensive Persian silk against her cheek, blood soaking into fibers that cost hundreds of dollars per square foot. The baby kicked, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, like a reminder. "You have to stay awake. You have to protect us both." Grace heard sirens, far away, getting closer. Preston knelt beside her, put his hand on her shoulder. Gentle. He was always gentle when other people were watching. "Hang on, darling," he said, loud enough for the dispatcher to hear. "Help is coming. Everything will be okay." His other hand found hers, squeezed, too tight, painful. His mouth was close to her ear, voice low, intimate, the voice he used in bed, the voice that used to make her feel loved. "You fell," he whispered. "Say you fell, or I will make you regret this." The siren stopped outside, car doors slammed, footsteps on the marble entry, the housekeeper's voice. The study door opened. 2 EMTs rushed in, a young woman and an older man. The woman knelt beside Grace immediately. Her name tag read Jennifer Walsh. She had kind eyes, the kind of eyes that had seen things, that knew things. "Ma'am, I'm Jennifer. Can you hear me?" Grace nodded. The movement made the world spin. What's your name? Grace Caldwell. Okay, Grace, I'm going to examine you. Can you tell me what happened? Preston started to speak. Jennifer held up her hand. Sir, I need to hear from the patient. Grace looked at Jennifer, really looked, saw something in her face. Belief. This woman would believe her. He threw it, Grace said, each word separate, deliberate. Trophy, on purpose, at my head. Jennifer's expression didn't change, but her eyes did, recognition. She'd been on calls like this before. I'm documenting everything you're saying, Jennifer said quietly. Everything I see, okay? She examined the wound. Grace winced. Jennifer pulled out her phone, took photos of the wound, of Grace's face, of the blood on the rug. Then she turned, looked at the trophy lying 8 feet away. Blood on the mounted rider. She photographed that too. Sir, how did the trophy get over there if your wife fell here? Preston opened his mouth, closed it. I'm not sure. Everything happened so fast. Jennifer looked at her partner. Something passed between them. Understanding. We need to transport, she said. Possible traumatic brain injury. She's pregnant. We need OB standing strong. They transferred Grace to a gurney. Her silk dress was ruined. Blood-soaked. $800. Preston's credit card. Everything Grace owned came from Preston's credit card. She hadn't had her own money in 6 years, hadn't had her own anything. The ambulance ride was short. 8 minutes to Connecticut Regional Hospital. Jennifer stayed by Grace's side, took her blood pressure, monitored the baby, asked questions. Grace, has anything like this happened before? No, I mean, he gets angry, but he's never, not like this. Does he control things? Your money? Your phone? Where you go? Grace started to say no, started to defend Preston. It was automatic. 6 years of training. Make him look good. Make his anger make sense. Make everything her fault. But she stopped, looked at Jennifer's kind eyes, said yes, everything. He controls everything. Jennifer squeezed her hand. You're brave for telling the truth. The hospital was bright, too bright, fluorescent lights that hurt Grace's eyes. A nurse met them at the emergency entrance. Older woman, efficient. She took one look at Grace and started barking orders. Trauma Bay 3, get OB down here. Get neurology, now. They wheeled Grace into a trauma bay. Machines everywhere. Beeping. The nurse cut away Grace's dress, applied monitors. The fetal monitor went on Grace's belly, and suddenly the room filled with sound. Thump, 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 thump. The baby's heartbeat. Fast but steady. Strong. Grace started crying, not from pain, from relief. The baby was okay. The baby was alive. A doctor arrived, young, maybe 30. She moved fast, checked Grace's pupils, asked her questions. What's your name? Grace Caldwell. What day is it? Saturday. No, Sunday? I'm not sure. Who's the president? Grace knew this. She knew this yesterday, but the answer wouldn't come. Her brain felt foggy, disconnected. I can't remember. The doctor looked at the nurse. Get that CT now. Another doctor came in. Older woman, confident. I'm Dr. Mitchell. I'm the OB on call. Let's check on baby, okay? She used the Doppler. The heartbeat got louder. Dr. Mitchell smiled. Baby sounds great. Strong heartbeat, good movement. Grace, are you having any contractions? Any pain in your abdomen? No, just my head. I can't think right. That's what worries us. We're going to scan your head. Make sure there's no bleeding in your brain. Bleeding in my brain? The words sounded impossible, like something from a medical drama. Not real life, but this was real life. This was Grace's life. This was what happened when you corrected your husband at dinner. They wheeled her to radiology. The CT scanner looked like a giant donut. Grace had to lie perfectly still. Every breath felt like her skull was splitting open. The baby kicked throughout, reminding her, grounding her. You're still here. We're still here. The scan took 12 minutes. 12 minutes of holding still while her head screamed and her baby kicked and her world fell apart. When they wheeled her back to the trauma bay, Catherine was there. Grace's mother stood by the monitors in her surgical scrubs. She'd driven from Manhattan, 90 minutes, She must have been speeding, must have been terrified. Mom, Grace said, started crying again. Catherine took her hand, her surgeon hand, steady, strong. I'm here, baby, I'm here. The ER doctor came back with films, digital images on a tablet. He held it up, pointed. Mrs. Caldwell, this is your CT scan. This dark area here? That's blood between your skull and your brain. It's called a subdural hematoma. Grace stared at the image, at her own brain, at the proof of what Preston did inside her head. Is the baby? The baby is fine right now, the doctor said. But Grace, this is serious. This is a traumatic brain injury. The symptoms you're having, the confusion, the difficulty with words, that's because your brain is being compressed by this blood. Catherine moved closer to the screen, studied it with professional eyes. Grace watched her mother's face perform careful neutrality, the face she used when delivering bad news to families. How large is the hematoma? Catherine asked. About 15 milliliters. It's stable right now, but we need to admit her for observation. If it expands, we may need surgical intervention. Surgery? Grace's hand went to her stomach. But the baby will do everything possible to protect your pregnancy, the doctor said. But right now, your brain is our priority. You understand? If this gets worse, you could have a stroke. You could die. Die. The word hung in the air. Grace could die. Because Preston threw a trophy. Because she'd corrected him about a painting date. Catherine stepped forward. Her voice was calm, clinical. Doctor, I need to be clear about something. This wasn't an accident. My daughter was struck with a heavy object by her husband. This needs to be documented, photographed, reported. The doctor's expression shifted, uncomfortable. Dr. Whitman, we can't make assumptions. I'm not assuming, I'm stating facts. My daughter told the EMTs what happened. Jennifer Walsh documented it. The injury pattern is consistent with blunt force trauma. Connecticut is a mandatory reporting state for domestic violence involving pregnant women. Mom, Grace whispered. Preston will face consequences, Catherine said, for the first time in his privileged life. The doctor nodded slowly. I'll make sure social services is contacted, and I'll document everything. They admitted Grace to a private room on the 4th floor, monitors everywhere, IV in her arm, fetal monitor strapped to her belly, the baby's heartbeat filling the room. Catherine pulled a chair close, sat down, took Grace's hand. Tell me everything, she said, from the beginning. And for the first time in 6 years, Grace told the truth. Grace talked. The words came slowly, her brain still foggy from the injury. But she talked about the dinner, about correcting Preston, about the trophy. Catherine listened, didn't interrupt, took notes on her phone, surgeon's habit, document everything. Has he hit you before? Catherine asked. No, never. I mean, he's thrown things, but never at me, at walls, at doors. He threw my phone in the pool once because I was texting Elena too much. What did he do after he threw your phone? He bought me a new one, the newest iPhone. Apologized. Said he'd been stressed with work. He was so sorry. He felt terrible. Catherine wrote that down. What else has he thrown? Grace tried to remember. Her head hurt, but the memories came. A glass at the wall behind me after I suggested we have dinner with Elena and her boyfriend. The glass shattered. I was picking up pieces for an hour. Did he help you clean? No, he went to his study. Later, he came out and said I should be more careful, that I shouldn't make him so angry. He made it your fault. Everything is my fault. Grace said it automatically, then hurt herself, really hurt herself. Oh God, everything is always my fault. Catherine squeezed her hand. That's called blame shifting. It's an abuse tactic. But I do make him angry. I know it sets him off, and I do it anyway. I knew he was stressed about the Vanderbilt dinner, and I corrected him in front of them. Grace, Catherine's voice was sharp, cutting through the fog. You corrected a factual error about a painting. That's not a crime. That's not deserving of violence. Nothing you could say or do justifies him throwing a trophy at your pregnant head. Grace started crying. Not pretty crying, ugly crying. The kind that made her nose run and her face blotch. The kind that made the baby kick in alarm. I thought I was going to die, she whispered. I thought he was going to kill me and the baby. I know, sweetheart, I know. A knock at the door. A police officer entered. Young, maybe 25. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be there. Mrs. Caldwell, I'm Officer Martinez. I need to ask you some questions about what happened tonight. Grace looked at Catherine. Her mother nodded. Okay, Grace said. Officer Martinez pulled out a notebook. Can you tell me what happened? In your own words? Grace told the story again. The dinner, the correction, the trophy. She was getting better at telling it. The words came easier each time. Officer Martinez wrote everything down. And your husband is Preston Caldwell, the venture capitalist? Yes. Something changed in his expression. I see. And you're saying he threw this trophy at you intentionally? Yes, I watched him pick it up. I watched him aim. Mrs. Caldwell, are you sure? Head injuries can cause confusion. Maybe you misunderstood. She didn't misunderstand, Catherine said. She told the EMTs the same story, before she was treated, before anyone could influence her. Ma'am, I'm trying to get the facts. The facts are that my daughter has a subdural hematoma from blunt force trauma. The facts are that the trophy was found 8 feet from where she was injured. The facts are that her husband has money and you're already trying to give him an out. Oh, Officer Martinez's face flushed. I'm just doing my job. Then do it properly. Take photos and interview the EMTs. Get the CT scans. Build a case. He left after 10 more minutes. Grace could tell he wasn't going to pursue it. Men like Preston didn't get arrested. They had lawyers. They had connections. They had money. After he left, Elena arrived. Grace's best friend burst through the door like a storm. She took one look at Grace's bandaged head and started crying. Jesus Christ, Grace, I'm going to kill him. Elena? No, I'm serious. I'm going to actually kill him. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, carefully, avoiding the IV lines and monitors. I knew he was controlling. I knew he was an asshole, but this is attempted murder. It was just, he was angry. Stop, Elena's voice was fierce. Stop making excuses for him. He threw a trophy at your pregnant head. There's no excuse for that. None. Grace nodded, felt tears coming again. I'm scared. I know. But your mom is here. I'm here. We're going to figure this out. Elena stayed for an hour, made Grace laugh despite everything, told stories about her latest disaster date, about her mother's attempts to set her up with nice boys from her physical therapy practice. Normal things. Things that reminded Grace there was a world outside this hospital room. Outside Preston's control. After Elena left, Catherine pulled out her laptop. Grace, I've been thinking, we need to be strategic about this. What do you mean? Preston has money. Money buys lawyers. Lawyers control narratives. We need to control our own narrative. We need evidence, documentation, everything. Mom, I just want to rest. I know, and you will. But first I need you to think. Has Preston done anything else? Anything controlling or concerning? Even small things? Grace thought, her head hurt, but she tried. He tracks my phone. There's an app. He says it's for safety, in case something happens while I'm pregnant. Catherine wrote that down. What else? He controls the money. I have a credit card, but he checks every purchase. Questions me if I buy something he doesn't approve of. I wanted to take a painting class last year. He said it was a waste of money, that I should focus on the pregnancy. You weren't pregnant last year. No, but he said we were trying, that I should be preparing. What else? The therapist. He insisted I see Dr. Bennett. For anxiety, he said. But every time I tried to talk about Preston, she'd redirect. Ask me why I was so focused on his behavior instead of my own reactions. Catherine stopped typing, looked at Grace. He chose your therapist? Yes, Dr. Bennett was recommended by his friend. Grace, that's not therapy, that's surveillance. The word hit Grace like another blow. Surveillance. Like she was a criminal. Like she was the problem. He hired a nanny, Grace said quietly, for after the baby comes. I haven't even met her. He interviewed her himself, said he wanted to make sure she was qualified. Does he know I'm here? I texted him, said I was staying with you during recovery. Doctor's orders. What did he say? Grace pulled up the text, showed Catherine. Preston, fine, rest. We'll talk when you're irrational. When you're irrational, like Grace was being irrational, like being upset about a head injury was unreasonable. Catherine read it, her jaw tightened. Grace, I want you to consider something. I want you to consider that what Preston has been doing to you for 6 years is called coercive control. It's abuse, even without the trophy, even without physical violence. But he never hit me before. Abuse isn't just hitting, it's isolation, it's financial control, it's monitoring, it's making you doubt yourself. It's systematically dismantling your independence so you can't leave. Grace looked at her pregnant belly, at the monitor showing her daughter's heartbeat. I can't leave. We have a baby. I don't have money. I don't have anywhere to go. You have me, you have Elena, and Grace, we're going to make sure you have options. A nurse came in to check vitals, took Grace's blood pressure, checked the baby, everything was stable. The hematoma wasn't growing. That was good news. After the nurse left, Grace tried to sleep, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw the trophy, saw Preston's face, that cold calculation, that moment when she realized he wanted to hurt her, really hurt her. The baby kicked, strong kicks now, like she was practicing, getting ready for the world outside. Grace put her hand on her belly, whispered, I'm going to protect you. I don't know how yet, but I will. Catherine stayed in the chair by the bed. Grace could hear her typing, working, planning. Her mother had saved hundreds of lives with her surgical skills. Now she was using those same skills to save Grace. At 2 in the morning, Grace woke to voices. Catherine was on her phone, speaking quietly, but Grace could hear. Daniel, I need you to meet my daughter, Grace Whitman Caldwell. Her husband assaulted her. Traumatic brain injury, 7 months pregnant, documented evidence. A pause. Yes, I have CT scans, EMT testimony, hospital records, everything. Another pause. She's going to need the best. This man has money, connections. He's going to fight. Grace closed her eyes, pretended to be asleep. Listened to her mother building a case, building a wall of protection, building a future where Grace and her baby could be safe. She touched her bandaged head. The trophy had left a mark, probably a scar, permanent reminder. But maybe that was okay. Maybe she needed a reminder, something physical, something that said, this happened, this was real. You're not crazy. The baby kicked again. Grace whispered to her belly, to her daughter who couldn't hear yet but somehow knew. Your grandmother is fierce. You're going to love her. She's going to teach you to be strong, stronger than me. But even as she said it, Grace wondered, was she weak? She'd stayed with Preston for 6 years, ignored the signs, made excuses, let him control her, let him isolate her, let him turn her into someone small and manageable. No, Catherine's voice in her head. You're not weak. You survived. That takes strength. Grace wasn't sure if that was true, but she wanted it to be true. For her daughter, for herself, for all the women who'd stay in rooms with men who threw things and said it was love. She fell asleep to the sound of her baby's heartbeat, to her mother's voice planning their escape, to the beginning of understanding that sometimes survival looked like running, and sometimes it looked like fighting back. Tomorrow they would start building the case. Tonight, Grace just had to breathe, had to keep her brain healing, had to keep her baby safe, had to remember who she was before Preston, before the trophy room, before she learned to make herself small. She dreamed of her art, of the gallery where she used to show her work, of paintings she'd created before Preston said it was a hobby, before she believed him. In the dream, she was standing in front of a canvas, 7 months pregnant, painting with sure strokes, creating something beautiful, creating something that was hers. She woke at dawn with the dream still fresh, with possibilities still humming in her chest, with the first tiny spark of something that might become hope. Grace was discharged after 48 hours. The subdural hematoma was stable, not growing, not shrinking, just there, a permanent reminder sitting between her skull and her brain. Dr. Hayes, the neurologist, gave her discharge instructions. You need to rest, no stress. Someone needs to be with you at all times in case you have symptoms. Confusion, seizures, loss of consciousness. She'll be staying with me, Catherine said. I'll monitor her. Dr. Hayes nodded. Looked at Grace. Mrs. Caldwell, traumatic brain injury is serious. You may experience cognitive changes, memory problems, difficulty concentrating, mood changes. These can last months. Some may be permanent. Permanent. The words settled over Grace like a weight. Preston had permanently changed her brain, changed who she was, changed how she thought. Will I be able to take care of my baby? Grace asked, her voice small, scared. With support, yes, but you'll need help, especially in the first few months. TBI recovery takes time. Catherine drove Grace to Brooklyn, to the brownstone where Grace had grown up, where she'd spent college breaks, where she'd brought Preston to meet her mother for the first time. Grace remembered that visit, how charmed Catherine had been, how Preston had been so polite, so respectful, how he'd asked Catherine about her work, her research, how he'd seemed genuinely interested. Grace wondered now if that had been an act, if everything had been an act. The brownstone smelled like home, like her mother's perfume, like old books and fresh coffee. Elena was there. She'd brought bags from the Connecticut estate. The housekeeper had packed them. Grace opened the first bag. Everything was perfectly coordinated. Matching sets, designer labels. Nothing Grace had chosen herself. Preston approved every purchase, every outfit, every shoe. Grace couldn't remember the last time she'd bought something just because she liked it. The second bag had her pregnancy journal. Grace hadn't asked for it, but someone, maybe the housekeeper, maybe Preston, had included it. Grace flipped through the pages, her handwriting, her thoughts. Except reading it now felt like reading someone else's diary. Someone naive, someone who didn't understand what was happening to her. October 15th, Preston surprised me with a new car today. A Mercedes SUV, safe for the baby, he said. He sold my old car without asking. I was upset at first, but he's right. The Mercedes is safer. Grace remembered that day, how she'd loved her old car, a beat-up Honda Civic from college. It had character, history, but Preston had sold it. Didn't ask, just did it. And Grace had convinced herself it was sweet, that he was protecting her. November 3rd, Preston wants me to stop seeing Elena so much. He says she's not a good influence, that she encourages me to be selfish. I don't think that's true, but maybe he's right. Maybe I am too focused on my friendships instead of my marriage. Grace felt sick reading that. Preston had isolated her, systematically, slowly, and she'd helped him do it. December 20th, I miss painting. I asked Preston if I could set up a studio in the spare room. He said we need that room for the baby, that I should focus on being a mother now. My art can wait. He's probably right. Grace ripped the page out, then another, and another, tearing away the evidence of her own slow erasure. The baby kicked, hard, like approval. Like, yes, Mom, rip it up, burn it down. Elena walked in, saw the torn pages scattered on the bed. Good, that version of you needs to die. That's harsh, Grace said, but she smiled a little. It's true that Grace made excuses. This Grace fights back. Catherine appeared in the doorway. Daniel Berkowitz is here. Are you ready to meet him? Grace touched her bandaged head, looked at her torn journal pages, at Elena's fierce face, at her mother's determined expression. Yes, I'm ready. Daniel Berkowitz was 50-something, sharp suit, sharper eyes. He sat up at Catherine's dining table like he was preparing for surgery. Laptop, legal pads, organized chaos that somehow made sense. Grace, he said, shook her hand gentle, like he understood she was fragile. I'm sorry for what happened to you. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Preston pays for it. Thank you. I need to be direct with you about what we're facing. Your husband has money, significant money. He's going to hire the best defense attorney money can buy. That attorney is going to try to destroy your credibility, make you look unstable, vindictive, crazy. I'm not crazy. I know that, but they are going to try to make a jury believe you are. So we need to be strategic. We need evidence, lots of it, and we need to establish a pattern. Daniel pulled up a file on his laptop. I've been researching Preston. Did you know he was married before? The room went silent. Grace stared at him. What? Preston was married before, to a woman named Adrienne Spencer, 8 years ago. Marriage lasted 18 months. Sealed divorce records, but I pulled what I could. Adrienne went to the emergency room twice during their marriage. Once for a fractured wrist, once for facial contusions. Grace couldn't breathe. Preston had been married before, for 18 months, and he'd never mentioned it, never said a word. He told me I was his first everything, Grace whispered. His first serious relationship, his first love. I was special. You were lied to, Daniel said, not unkindly, factually. And Grace, this is good news for us, because if we can find Adrienne Friedrichsen, if we can get her to talk, if she was also abused, that establishes a pattern. That makes Preston's defense much harder. Catherine leaned forward. Can you find her? I'm working on it. She remarried, changed her name, moved to Oregon, but yes, I'll find her. Daniel spent 2 hours going through everything. Grace told him about the phone tracking, the financial control, the therapist Preston had chosen, the nanny he'd hired without her, the constant monitoring, the way he rewrote reality, made Grace doubt her own perceptions. This is called coercive control, Daniel said. It's abuse, even without the physical violence. Some states are starting to recognize it legally. Connecticut isn't quite there yet, but we can use it to paint a picture, to show the jury who Preston really is. Well, and what about the prenup? Grace asked. I signed a prenup. It says I get nothing if we divorce. Prenups can be challenged, especially in cases of domestic violence. Connecticut law allows for prenups to be set aside if they were signed under duress or if there's been abuse. We're going to argue both. How much are we talking about? Elena asked. Always practical. Daniel looked at Grace. How much do you want? I never thought about it. I just want to be safe. Want my baby to be safe. Think bigger, Daniel said. This isn't just about safety. It's about justice. Preston has money. Lots of it. His venture capital fund is worth hundreds of millions. His family has old money. Connecticut estate, Manhattan penthouse, assets all over the world. I don't want to be greedy. This isn't greed. This is compensation. For your injury, for your lost career, for your pain and suffering, for raising a child alone with a traumatic brain injury, for everything he took from you. Catherine added, and it's deterrence. Men like Preston only understand money. Taking his money is the only punishment that will hurt. Daniel pulled out a calculator, started typing. Medical bills, lost earning capacity, pain and suffering, punitive damages. I'm thinking we asked for 8 figures, 10 million minimum. Grace felt dizzy. $10 million. It was impossible. Unreal. He'll never pay that. He will if we win. And Grace, we're going to win because we have something he doesn't have. What? The truth. Daniel smiled, not friendly, predatory, and a neurosurgeon mother who's been documenting everything. They talked for another hour. Strategy, timeline, what to expect. Daniel explained that Preston would likely file for custody, try to take the baby, use Grace's TBI as evidence she was unfit. They needed to be ready for that. Can he really take my baby? Grace asked, fear sharp in her throat. He can try. But Grace, you have the best possible witness. Your mother, a renowned neurosurgeon who can testify that your TBI doesn't affect your ability to parent, that you're healing well, that you're competent. I don't feel competent. I can't remember things. I get confused. My hand shakes. Grace held up her right hand. The tremor was slight but visible. How can I take care of a baby like this? With help, Catherine said firmly. With me, with Elena, with nurses if needed. Grace, you're not doing this alone. After Daniel left, Grace sat in her childhood bedroom. Same bed, same desk, different person. The Grace who'd slept in this room had been confident, ambitious, full of dreams. What happened to her? Preston happened. 6 years of systematic erosion. 6 years of being told her perceptions were wrong, her feelings were too much, her ambitions were selfish. 6 years of becoming smaller and smaller until she disappeared entirely. Except she hadn't disappeared, not completely. Some part of her had survived. The part that called her mother. The part that told Jennifer Walsh the truth. The part that was still here, still fighting. Grace pulled out her phone, scrolled through old photos, found pictures from before Preston, from college, from her first gallery show. She'd been 23, wearing jeans and a paint-stained shirt, grinning, so proud of her work, so sure of herself. She barely recognized that woman, but she wanted to. She wanted to remember who she'd been, who she could be again. Elena knocked, came in with tea. "You okay?" "I don't know. Daniel wants to sue for $10 million. That's insane." "Is it? You have a permanent brain injury. You lost your career. You're raising a baby alone. 10 million seems reasonable to me. I never wanted his money. I just wanted him to love me." Elena sat on the bed, took Grace's hand. "Honey, that wasn't love. Love doesn't track your phone. Love doesn't control your money. Love doesn't throw trophies at your head." "Then what was it?" "Ownership. Preston didn't want a wife. He wanted a possession. Something beautiful he could show off and control." Grace knew Elena was right, but knowing and accepting were different. Part of her still wanted to believe Preston had loved her, that somewhere under the control and anger was the man she'd married, the man who'd seemed so perfect, so attentive, so devoted. But that man had never existed. He'd been a performance, an act, designed to trap Grace, and it had worked. For 6 years, it had worked. Her phone buzzed. Preston. Grace's heart raced. Elena leaned over, read the text. "Preston, we need to talk about our future, about our daughter. Call me." "Don't," Elena said. "Let Daniel handle it. That's what lawyers are for." But Grace's thumb hovered over the call button. Old habits, 6 years of responding immediately, of managing Preston's moods, of preventing his anger. Grace, Elena's voice was sharp. "Don't. You don't owe him anything. Not anymore." Grace put the phone down. It felt like defiance, like rebellion, like the smallest, bravest thing she'd ever done. That night, Grace dreamed of the trophy room, but in the dream, she was dismantling it, taking down each trophy, each award, each symbol of Preston's dominance, packing them in boxes, carrying them out. The room got lighter with each trophy removed, until it was empty, clean, ready for something new. She woke with her hand on her belly. The baby was awake, moving, dancing, living. Grace whispered to her daughter, to this person who didn't exist yet, but somehow already did. "Your father hurt me, but he's not going to hurt you. I'm going to make sure of that. Even if I have to fight for the rest of my life, even if I have to face him in court, even if I have to stand up and tell the world what he did, I'll do it. For you." The baby kicked, like agreement. Like, "Yes, Mom, fight, I'm worth it, we're worth it." Grace fell back asleep with that kick echoing in her body, with the first real hope she'd felt in years, with the understanding that sometimes love meant war. Daniel Berkowitz filed the lawsuit on a Wednesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, the world knew. Grace was sitting in Catherine's living room when her phone started blowing up. Text, calls, email notifications. She'd been off social media for years. Preston didn't like her posting. Said it was undignified, but people found her anyway. Elena grabbed Grace's phone, started reading headlines. Pregnant woman sues millionaire husband for trophy assault. Connecticut venture capitalist accused of brain injury attack. Neurosurgeon mother takes on wealthy son-in-law. "Oh God," Grace said. "Everyone knows." "Good," Catherine said firmly. "Let them know. Let the whole world know what Preston did." But Grace felt exposed, vulnerable, like standing naked in front of thousands of strangers. Her worst moment, her most painful experience, turned into news, into entertainment, into something people would discuss over coffee. "Don't read the comments," Elena warned. "Seriously, don't." Grace read them anyway. She couldn't help it. scrolled through news articles on her laptop, read what strangers said about her life, about her choices, about her pain. She's just after his money. Gold digger getting what she deserves. What did she do to make him that angry? Convenient she's pregnant. Sympathy play. Trophy wives get trophy injuries, lol. Each comment was a small cut. Not deep, but enough. Enough to make Grace doubt. To make her wonder if she was doing the right thing. If people would believe her. If this was all a mistake. Stop reading that garbage, Elena said. Close the laptop. Those people don't know you. They don't know what happened. But what if they're right? What if I am just after money? You're not. You're after justice. There's a difference. Grace wanted to believe that, but the doubt crept in anyway. Preston had been working on her for 6 years, teaching her to doubt herself, to question her reality, to believe she was always wrong. Those comments just reinforced what he'd been saying all along, that she was the problem, that she'd caused this, that she deserved it. Her phone rang, unknown number. Grace answered without thinking. Grace, Preston's voice. Soft, the voice he used when they were dating, when she thought she was lucky. This is insane. We need to talk. Grace's heart raced. Elena and Catherine were watching her. She put the phone on speaker. I don't think we should talk without lawyers present, Grace said. Tried to sound firm, confident. Her voice shook anyway. Lawyers? Grace, come on. This is us. We're having a baby together. We can work this out. You threw a trophy at my head, Preston. It was an accident. I threw it near you. You moved into its path. I never meant to hurt you. And there it was, the rewriting. Grace had seen him aim, had watched his eyes calculate, had known in that moment he wanted to hurt her. But he said it with such conviction, such sincerity. For a split second, Grace doubted her own memory. The CT scan says otherwise, Catherine said loudly, making sure Preston knew she was there. Listening, witnessing. Catherine, Preston's voice changed, harder. This is between my wife and me. Your wife has a subdural hematoma, a traumatic brain injury, from blunt force trauma to her head. That's not an accident, Preston. That's assault. I'm not having this conversation with you. Then don't have it at all, Catherine said. Any further communication should go through Grace's attorney. Daniel Berkowitz, I'm sure you know the name. Preston was quiet for a moment. Then, Grace, think about our daughter. Think about what's best for her. Is this really what you want? Our family torn apart? Her growing up in a broken home? She's safer in a broken home than one where her father throws things at her mother's head, Grace said. Found her voice, found her strength. I'm done protecting you, Preston. I'm done making excuses. I'm done. She hung up. Her hand shook. Not from the TB, from adrenaline, from fear. From the huge, terrifying step she'd just taken. Elena hugged her. That was amazing. You were amazing. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. You just stood up to your abuser. That takes guts. Grace spent the rest of the day trying not to think about Preston, about the lawsuit, about the comments. She tried to rest, to let her brain heal. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw the trophy, saw Preston's face, heard his voice. This is insane. We can work this out. Could they? Was Grace overreacting? Was she destroying her family over one mistake? One moment of anger? No. Catherine's voice in her head. This wasn't one moment. This was 6 years. This was a pattern. This was who Preston really was when you stripped away the money and charm and control. That night, Grace couldn't sleep. The baby was restless, kicking constantly. Or maybe Grace just couldn't distinguish waking from sleeping anymore. The TBI messed with her sleep cycles, made everything foggy, disjointed. At 3 in the morning, Grace gave up, went to Catherine's kitchen, made tea she wouldn't drink, sat at the table, stared at nothing. She heard footsteps. Catherine appeared, still in pajamas, hair down, without her doctor armor. Can't sleep? Catherine asked. The baby's awake, or I'm awake. I can't tell. Catherine sat down, reached for Grace's hand. Talk to me. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm overreacting? What if Preston really didn't mean to hurt me? Grace, I've seen your CT scan. I've treated hundreds of head injuries. What happened to you was not an accident. The angle, the force, the location, that was deliberate. But what if people don't believe me? What if the jury thinks I'm just after money? Then we show them the evidence, the medical records, the empty testimony, the pattern of control. We make them see the truth. Grace touched her bandaged head. The scar underneath was healing, but it would always be there, permanent reminder. I'm scared, Mom. No, being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're scared and you do it anyway. They sat in silence. The kitchen clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Normal sounds, peaceful sounds. Grace tried to remember the last time she'd felt peaceful. Before Preston, before the control, before she learned to peg herself small. I miss who I used to be, Berbexi. Say. Grace said quietly. I miss painting, miss having opinions, miss feeling like I mattered. You still matter. You always mattered. Preston just made you forget. How do I remember? How do I become her again? One day at a time, one choice at a time. Every time you tell the truth, you remember a little more. Every time you stand up for yourself, you get stronger. Grace nodded, tried to believe it, tried to see herself as strong instead of broken, as brave instead of scared, as fighting back instead of falling apart. They went back to bed eventually. Grace lay in her childhood room, listened to her daughter move inside her, whispered promises. Promises about safety, about strength, about never letting anyone make her small again. She fell asleep to those promises, to the rhythm of her daughter's movements, to the hope that maybe, just maybe, they would both be okay. The next morning, Daniel called. Grace, I found Adrienne Spencer. Grace's heart jumped. You did? Yes, she's willing to talk, just to you. No lawyers, no recording. She wants to meet the woman who finally reported him. Where is she? Portland, Oregon. Can you fly? Grace looked at Catherine, Her mother nodded. We'll go together. 2 days later, Grace and Elena were on a plane to Portland. 8 months pregnant now. On TBI still affecting her balance. She shouldn't have been flying. Did it anyway. Some things were more important than doctor's orders. They met Adrienne at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. Grace recognized her immediately. Beautiful. 40-something. Expensive clothes. Successful. She looked like she had her life together, like nothing bad had ever happened to her. But Grace saw it. The way Adrienne's hands shook a little when she reached for her coffee. The way her eyes darted to the door. The way she sat with her back to the wall. Grace knew those behaviors, knew them intimately. They were survival mechanisms. They were what abuse left behind. Grace, Adrienne said, looked at Grace's pregnant belly, at the fading scar on her temple. Recognition crossed her face. He hit you in the temple too. Ooh, Grace touched her scar. Trophy, silver polo trophy. Mine was a picture frame, heavy one, crystal. He threw it when I suggested we spend Thanksgiving with my family instead of his. They talked for 2 hours about Preston, about the pattern, the control, the isolation, the way he made you doubt yourself, made you feel crazy, made you think you deserved it. I stayed for 18 months, Adrienne said. 18 months too long, but I didn't have anyone. My parents were dead. I didn't have friends. Preston made sure of that. Didn't have money, didn't have options. How did you leave? I almost didn't. The second ER visit, the hematoma, I almost died. The doctor told me if I went home, I might not survive the next incident. So I didn't go home. I called a domestic violence shelter from the hospital. They helped me disappear. Did you report him? I filed a police report. Preston's lawyers made it go away, paid off everyone, made me sign an NDA in exchange for the divorce settlement. I was scared, broke, alone, so I signed. I'm sorry, Grace said. Don't be. I survived. That's what matters. And Grace, you're braver than I was. You're fighting back, with lawyers as expensive as his, with your mother helping, with evidence. You're doing what I couldn't do. Will you testify, Grace asked? Against Preston. In my case, boss. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, stared into her coffee, finally said, I've wanted to for 8 years. Every time I heard his name, saw his face in business journals, knew he was out there, living his perfect life, hurting someone else. Yes, I'll testify by my... I'll tell them everything. Grace started crying. Relief, gratitude, understanding. Thank you. No, thank you for being brave enough to fight, for making it possible for me to finally tell the truth. They hugged. Two women, two survivors. Two people who'd loved the same man and learned the hard way that his love was poison. On the plane home, Grace felt different. Lighter, less alone. She wasn't the only one. Preston had done this before. Would probably do it again if someone didn't stop him. And Grace was going to be the one to stop him. Elena squeezed her hand. You okay? I'm angry, Grace said. Really, really angry. Good. Anger is useful. Anger gets shit done. Grace touched her belly. Her daughter kicked. Strong kicks now. Fighter kicks. He's not going to get away with him, even if it takes everything I have. Even if I have to stand up in court and tell the world what he did. He's not getting away with it. Elena smiled. There she is. There's the Grace I remember. The one who doesn't take shit from anyone. Grace hadn't felt like that Grace in years, but maybe she could be her again. Maybe that Grace wasn't gone, just buried, just waiting for permission to emerge. They landed in New York at midnight. Catherine picked them up. How did it go? She'll testify, Grace said. She's going to tell them everything. Catherine's smile was fierce, proud. Then we're going to win. Grace's water broke at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday, 3 weeks early. She was asleep in Catherine's guest room when it happened. Woke to wetness, to pressure, to the understanding that everything was about to change. Mom, Grace called, tried to sound calm, failed. Catherine appeared instantly. Surgeon training, always ready. Your water broke? Yes, I think. Is it supposed to be this much? Yes. Are you having contractions? Grace paid attention to her body, felt a tightening low in her belly, not painful yet, just pressure. Maybe, I don't know what they're supposed to feel like. We're going to the hospital. Now. They drove to Mount Sinai. Manhattan traffic at 2 a.m. was light. Catherine drove fast anyway. Surgeon driving, efficient, direct. Grace called Elena from the car. It's time, the baby's coming. Elena's voice was thick with sleep. I'm on my way. You got this, Grace. Labor hurt. Grace had read about it, taken classes. Preston had refused to come to the classes. Said he'd be too busy with work. Said his mother would help after the baby came. Said Grace didn't need him there for the birth. But Grace needed someone. Needed Catherine holding her hand. Needed Elena appearing at 4 a.m. with coffee and encouragement. Needed the nurses who were kind, who believed her when she said the pain was bad, who didn't tell her to be quiet, to handle it better, to stop making such a fuss. Contractions came faster, harder. Grace had thought the trophy was pain, but this was different. This was her body tearing itself apart to bring life into the world. This was violence in service of creation. By noon, Grace was exhausted. The baby wasn't descending. Something was wrong. The doctor came in. Dr. Mitchell. The OB who'd checked Grace in the ER. Grace, baby's heart rate is dropping. I think we need to do a C-section. Is the baby okay? She's in distress. The umbilical cord might be compressed. We need to get her out. Grace looked at Catherine. Her mother's face was carefully neutral. Doctor face. But Grace could see the worry underneath. Okay, Grace said. Do it. They prepped her for surgery. Spinal block. Catheter. Draping. Grace was awake for all of it. Could feel pressure but not pain. Could hear the doctors talking. Medical terms. Coordinates. Instructions. Mom? Grace couldn't see Catherine. The surgical drape blocked her view. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Catherine's voice next to her ear, her hand squeezing Grace's. Grace heard the sound of cutting, felt pulling, pressure, more pulling. Then a cry, high-pitched, angry, alive. It's a girl, Dr. Mitchell said. Unnecessarily. Grace already knew, had known since the ultrasound, but hearing it made it real and made her exist. They brought the baby to Grace's face, red, screaming, covered in vernix, beautiful, perfect, impossible. "Hello," Grace whispered. "I'm your mom." The baby stopped crying, looked at Grace with unfocused eyes, seemed to recognize her voice, the voice she'd been hearing for 9 months, the voice that had whispered promises and plans and love. "Charlotte," Grace said. "Your name is Charlotte." Not a family name, not Preston's choice, not anyone's decision but Grace's. A name that belonged only to her daughter. A name that meant free. They took Charlotte away to check her. Apgar score, weight, measurements. Grace was stitched up, moved to recovery. Everything felt distant, foggy, like she was underwater. Elena appeared with flowers. "She's beautiful, Grace. Absolutely perfect." "Is she okay?" They took her away. "She's fine, 8 pounds exactly, screaming loud enough to wake the dead. She's pissed about the whole birth thing." Grace laughed. Felt the pull of her incision. Pain but good pain, the kind that meant she was healing, that she'd survived. They brought Charlotte back, placed her on Grace's chest. Skin to skin, the baby rooted around. Found Grace's nipple. Started nursing. It hurt, but it was supposed to hurt. This was what mothers did, what bodies did, what survival looked like. Catherine took photos, Grace holding Charlotte, Charlotte's tiny face, her fingers, her toes. Evidence that this person existed, that Grace had brought her into the world despite everything, despite Preston, despite the lawsuit, despite the brain injury. Preston arrived 2 hours later. Grace was in a private room. Charlotte asleep in the bassinet. Grace's body ached everywhere. Her head, her incision, her back. But she was okay. They were okay. Preston walked in like he owned the place, like nothing had happened, like there wasn't a lawsuit, like he hadn't tried to kill Grace 8 weeks ago. "She's beautiful," Preston said. Walked straight to the bassinet, picked Charlotte up without asking. "Put her down," Grace said. Her voice was weak. Post-surgery, post-labor, but firm. "She's my daughter. She's our daughter, and you tried to kill me while I was pregnant with her." Preston held Charlotte, looked at Grace. "No jury is going to believe that. Not after they hear about your therapy sessions, about your paranoia, about your instability." Grace's blood went cold. "What are you talking about?" Dr. Bennett's notes, very detailed notes about your anxiety, your irrational fears, your difficulty distinguishing reality. My attorney has them, along with medical records showing a history of mental health treatment. "I saw Dr. Bennett because you made me. You chose her. You probably told her what to write." "Prove it." Preston smiled. Not kind, predatory. "Grace, you can drop the lawsuit. We can co-parent. I'll be generous. Or you can keep fighting. And I'll make sure you lose everything, including her." He put Charlotte back in the bassinet, gently. His hands were always gentle except when they weren't. "Think about it," he said. Kissed Grace's forehead. A husband's kiss, loving, tender, wrong. "I'll give you a few days to decide, but Grace, I always win." He left. Grace stared at Charlotte, at this tiny person who depended on her, who needed her to be strong, smart, brave, who needed her mother to not give up. Catherine came back with coffee, saw Grace's face. "What happened?" "Preston was here. He says he has Dr. Bennett's therapy notes, that they prove I'm unstable, that he's going to use them to take Charlotte." Catherine's jaw tightened. "Daniel needs to know about this. What if Preston's right? What if I can't win? What if I lose her?" "Grace, listen to me. You're not losing anything. We have evidence. We have Adrienne. We have the EMT testimony. We have your CT scans. We have everything. But my TBI, what if the judge thinks, I can't take care of her?" "Then we show them you can. We document everything. Every feeding, every diaper change, every moment of competent mothering. We show them you're healing, that you're capable, that you're exactly what Charlotte needs." Grace looked at Charlotte, at her daughter's perfect face, her tiny hands curled into fists. She looked like she was ready to fight, like she'd inherited something fierce from Grace, something that wouldn't give up. "Okay," Grace said. "Okay, we fight." That night, Grace tried to sleep, but Charlotte needed to be fed every 2 hours. Grace's body ached. Her milk hadn't come in fully yet. Charlotte was frustrated, crying. Grace was crying too. Everything hurt. Everything was hard. At 3 a.m., a nurse came in, older black woman, kind face. Her name tag said Patricia. "First baby?" Patricia asked. "Yes, I don't know what I'm doing." "Nobody does it first. Here, let me show you." Patricia helped Grace position Charlotte, adjusted the latch, made it less painful, more natural. Charlotte settled, started nursing properly. The room went quiet except for the small sounds of feeding. "You're doing great," Patricia said. "I don't feel like I'm doing great. I have a brain injury. I just had major surgery. My husband is threatening to take my baby. I don't know how I'm going to do this." Patricia was quiet for a moment, then said, "Honey, you're already doing it, right now, this moment. You're feeding your baby with a head injury and a C-section incision and a lawsuit hanging over you. If this isn't strength, I don't know what is." Grace looked down at Charlotte, at this tiny human who trusted her completely, who didn't know about lawsuits or brain injuries or abuse, who just knew that Grace was warm, safe, home. "I'm terrified," Grace whispered. "Good," Patricia said. "Means you understand what's at stake. Now let that terror make you fierce." Fierce. Grace liked that word. Not strong, not brave. Fierce. Like a mother protecting her young. Like someone who would burn the world down to keep her child safe. Charlotte finished nursing, fell asleep in Grace's arms. Grace studied her face, memorized it. This was why she was fighting. Not for money, not for revenge. For this, for the right to keep holding her daughter. For the freedom to raise her without fear. Elena came back in the morning with breakfast. Real food, not hospital food. Bagels from Grace's favorite place from college. Still remembered after all these years. "How was your first night?" Elena asked. "Hard, but I did it. We did it." "Of course you did. You're a badass." Grace didn't feel like a badass, but maybe that was okay. Maybe you didn't have to feel strong to be strong. Maybe you just had to keep going. Keep feeding your baby. Keep healing. Keep fighting. Daniel Berkowitz called later that day. Grace put him on speaker so Catherine and Elena could hear. "Grace, Preston's attorney filed an emergency motion. He's seeking temporary sole custody of Charlotte." Grace's stomach dropped. "Can he do that?" "He's doing it. The motion claims you're unfit due to your TBI and mental health issues. Cites Dr. Bennett's notes. Requests that Charlotte be placed with Preston pending a full custody evaluation." "I just gave birth yesterday. She's breastfeeding. You can't separate a newborn from her mother." "I agree, but Preston's arguing that your TBI makes you a danger, that you can't safely care for an infant. We have a hearing in 48 hours. 48 hours. Grace looked at Charlotte sleeping peacefully. 48 hours to prove she was a fit mother, to prove if she could take care of her own child, to prove Preston wrong. "What do I need to do?" Grace asked. "Document everything, every feeding, every diaper, every moment of successful mothering. Catherine, I need you to prepare testimony about Grace's neurological status, about her recovery, about her competence." "Done," Catherine said. "And Grace, I need you to be ready to testify, to tell the judge what Preston did, what he's been doing. Can you do that?" Grace looked at Charlotte, at her daughter's tiny face, at the person she'd fight the world for. "Yes," Grace said. "I can do that." The hearing was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. Grace hadn't slept. Charlotte was 3 days old, still learning to nurse, still waking every 2 hours, still needing everything. Grace's body was a disaster. Her incision hurt, her head hurt, her breasts hurt, everything leaked. Blood, milk, tears. This was motherhood. This was the reality no one talked about. The brutal, beautiful, impossible reality. Catherine helped her dress, professional but not too formal, a soft sweater, dark pants, something that said, "I'm a competent mother, not I'm going to court to fight for my child." Elena stayed home with Charlotte. Grace hated leaving her, felt physically wrong. like leaving a limb behind. But the courthouse didn't allow babies. So Charlotte stayed with Elena, safe, fed, loved. Daniel met them at the courthouse. Connecticut Family Court, beige, bureaucratic, depressing. Preston will be here with Marcus Brennan, Daniel said. They're going to paint a picture of an unstable woman who can't care for herself, let alone a child. We're going to paint a picture of a new mother recovering from domestic violence, competent, capable, with excellent support. What if I mess up? What if I say the wrong thing? You won't, just tell the truth. That's all we need. They waited in the hallway. Other families waited too. Custody battles, divorces, child welfare cases. Everyone looked tired, defeated, like the court system had already broken them. Preston arrived with Marcus Brennan. Marcus was 50-something, expensive suit, confident walk, the kind of lawyer who never lost, who made problems disappear, who knew how to work the system. Preston looked perfect. Charcoal suit, perfectly groomed, concerned husband face. He nodded at Grace, small, polite, like they were strangers, like he hadn't thrown a trophy at her head, like their daughter wasn't 3 days old. The bailiff called them in. Caldwell custody matter, Judge Morrison presiding. Judge Patricia Morrison was 60-something, no-nonsense face. She'd seen everything, heard every lie, knew every trick. Grace hoped that was good and hoped the judge would see through Preston. Marcus Brennan presented first, smooth, confident. Your Honor, we're seeking emergency custody due to serious concerns about Mrs. Caldwell's ability to safely care for the child. Mrs. Caldwell suffered a traumatic brain injury 8 weeks ago. She continues to experience cognitive deficits, memory problems, confusion, physical tremors. Additionally, she has a documented history of mental health issues, anxiety, paranoid thinking, difficulty distinguishing reality. He held up documents. Dr. Bennett's therapy notes, medical records from the ER, neurological evaluations. Mrs. Caldwell is currently living with her mother rather than in the family home. She has no stable residence, no income, no resources of her own. The child would be better served in Mr. Caldwell's care. He has the financial means, the stable home, the resources to provide excellent care. Daniel stood. Your Honor, this motion is a transparent attempt to control and punish Mrs. Caldwell for filing a civil suit against her husband. Mr. Caldwell threw a polo trophy at his pregnant wife's head, causing a subdural hematoma. That's the reason for her brain injury. That's the reason she's not living in the marital home. She's fleeing domestic violence, not abandoning her responsibilities. Judge Morrison held up her hand. I've read the briefs. Let's hear from the experts. Dr. Whitman, you're the maternal grandmother? Catherine stood, took the witness stand, swore to tell the truth, became doctor. Catherine Whitman, renowned neurosurgeon, not Catherine Whitman, terrified grandmother. Dr. Whitman, can you describe your daughter's current neurological status? Grace has made excellent progress. Her subdural hematoma has resolved. Her cognitive deficits are minimal and improving. She has some short-term memory issues and a slight tremor in her right hand, but these don't affect her ability to parent. Marcus Brennan cross-examined. Dr. Whitman, isn't it true that traumatic brain injury can cause personality changes, impulsivity, poor judgment? In severe cases, yes. Grace's TBI was moderate. She's healing appropriately. Her judgment is sound. She's been caring for her newborn excellently for 3 days with no issues. But doctor, you're her mother. Aren't you biased? I'm also a neurosurgeon with 30 years of experience treating head trauma. I can separate my professional opinion from my personal feelings. Grace is neurologically capable of caring for her child. Dr. Hayes testified next, the independent neurological expert. He was calm, professional, clear. I evaluated Mrs. Caldwell last week. Her TBI is healing as expected. Her deficits are minor. There's no neurological reason she can't safely parent her infant. In fact, the stress of separation from her 3-day-old baby would likely worsen her recovery. Marcus tried to poke holes, failed. Dr. Hayes was unshakable. Then Daniel dropped the bomb. Your Honor, we'd like to present testimony from Adrienne Spencer via video conference. Marcus Brennan stood quickly. Objection. This is irrelevant to the custody matter. Your Honor, Ms. Spencer was Mr. Caldwell's first wife. She has relevant testimony about his pattern of behavior. Judge Morrison considered. I'll allow it, but keep it focused. Adrian appeared on the courtroom screen. Professional, composed, beautiful. She looked directly at the camera, directly at Preston. Miss Spencer, you were married to Preston Caldwell? Yes, 8 years ago for 18 months. Can you tell the court what happened during that marriage? Preston was controlling. Monitored my phone, controlled my money, isolated me from friends and family. When I tried to resist, he became violent. Can you describe the violence? He threw things, at first at walls, then at me. A picture frame hit me in the face. I had facial contusions, a fractured cheekbone. I went to the ER. Did you tell them what happened? Yes, I said my husband threw it. They documented it, but Preston's lawyers made the report disappear. Did the violence escalate? Yes, the second incident, he pushed me down the stairs. I hit my head. I had a subdural hematoma, small one. But the doctor said if I went home, the next incident might kill me. So I didn't go home. I called a domestic violence shelter from the hospital. Preston's face was stone. No reaction. Marcus Brennan was writing furiously, taking notes, planning his attack. Miss Spencer, why are you testifying today? Because Grace is doing what I couldn't do. She's fighting back. She's protecting herself and her baby. And because if I'd testified 8 years ago, maybe Grace wouldn't have been hurt. Maybe Preston would have faced consequences. Maybe he would have stopped. Daniel sat down. Marcus Brennan stood. Ms. Spencer, isn't it true you signed a non-disclosure agreement regarding your marriage? Yes, in exchange for the divorce settlement. So you're violating that agreement by testifying today? Yes. And you understand that could result in legal consequences, financial penalties. I don't care. Some things are more important than money. Marcus had no response to that. He sat down. Judge Morrison looked at Preston. Mr. Caldwell, I'm troubled by this testimony. Do you have a response? Preston stood, confident, charming. Your Honor, my first marriage was a mistake. We were young, incompatible. I regret that Adrian was hurt, but that was 8 years ago. I've changed, grown, and Grace's situation is different. She's making false accusations because she's angry about the prenup, because she wants my money. I threw a trophy at her head, Your Honor, Daniel said. We have CT scans, EMT testimony, hospital records. This isn't about money. This is about safety. Judge Morrison held up her hand again. I've heard enough. Mrs. Caldwell, I'd like to hear from you. Grace's heart raced. She stood, walked to the witness stand. Her legs shook. Her right hand trembled. She tried to control it. Couldn't. Mrs. Caldwell, how are you feeling? Tired, scared, my body hurts, but I'm okay. We're okay. Can you describe your current living situation? I'm staying with my mother in Brooklyn. She's helping me with the baby, with my recovery. It's temporary until I find my own place. And you're caring for Charlotte, feeding her, changing her? Yes, every 2 hours. She's breastfeeding. She's healthy, happy. We're bonding. Mrs. Caldwell, can you tell me what happened the night of your injury? Grace took a breath, touched her scar. Preston and I hosted the Vanderbilts for dinner. During dinner, I corrected Preston about a painting date. It was a small thing, factual, but he was angry. After the guests left, he told me to come to his study, the trophy room. He said I'd embarrassed him. Then he picked up the polo trophy, and he threw it at my head, on purpose. I tried to duck, wasn't fast enough. What happened next? I was bleeding, confused. I called my mother. The EMTs came. Preston told them I fell, but I told them the truth. He threw it. I saw him aim. Mrs. Caldwell, do you believe you can safely care for your daughter? Yes, I'm healing. I have help. I'm doing everything right. And Your Honor, I have to keep her. She's mine. I carried her. I gave birth to her. She needs me and I need her. Preston can't take her. Please don't let him take her. Grace was crying, couldn't help it, couldn't hide it, didn't try. Judge Morrison's expression didn't change. But she wrote something. Long note, thoughtful. I'm going to recess for 20 minutes. I'll return with my decision. 20 minutes felt like hours. Grace sat with Catherine and Daniel, waited, prayed, made bargains with Gushel, with the universe. With anyone who might be listening, please, please let me keep my baby. Judge Morrison returned. Everyone stood, sat. Grace's heart pounded so hard she could hear it. I've reviewed the evidence, Judge Morrison said, the medical records, the testimony, the circumstances. While I have concerns about Mrs. Caldwell's recovery from traumatic brain injury, I also have significant concerns about Mr. Caldwell's behavior. Grace couldn't breathe. The testimony from Ms. Spencer establishes a pattern. The medical evidence supports Mrs. Caldwell's account of the assault. And the simple fact is that a 3-day-old breastfeeding infant belongs with her mother absent extraordinary circumstances. Therefore, I'm denying the motion for emergency custody. Charlotte will remain with Mrs. Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell may have supervised visitation. 2 hours, twice per week, at a neutral location with a court-appointed supervisor. Grace gasped. Tears, relief. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God. However, Judge Morrison continued, I'm ordering a full custody evaluation. Both parents will be assessed. Home visits, psychological evaluations. The works. We'll reconvene in 60 days for a full hearing. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Charlotte was staying with her. That was all that mattered. They left the courthouse. Grace called Elena immediately. We won. Charlotte stays with me. Elena's voice was thick with emotion. I knew you would. Come home. Charlotte misses you. The drive back to Brooklyn was quiet. Grace was exhausted, emotionally wrung out. But lighter, free. She'd won the first battle. Preston had tried to take Charlotte, failed, lost. When they got home, Grace went straight to Charlotte, held her, breathed her in and baby smell, milk and powder and something indefinable, something that said mine, safe, loved. I'm not going to lose you, Grace whispered. I'm going to fight as hard as it takes, as long as it takes. You're mine forever. Charlotte made a small sound, not quite a cry, just a sound, like she understood, like she knew her mother would protect her, no matter what. The custody evaluation started 2 weeks later. A woman named Dr. Sarah Phillips came to Catherine's brownstone. Mid-40s, neutral expression, professional distance. She watched Grace with Charlotte, observed feeding, diaper changes, bath time, took notes on everything. Grace felt like a specimen, like something being studied rather than a mother caring for her child. Tell me about your support system, Dr. Phillips said. My mother? She's a neurosurgeon. She's been incredible, helping with everything. And my best friend, Elena, she's a physical therapist. She comes over almost every day. And the father, Preston Caldwell? He has supervised visitation, twice a week, 2 hours each time, at a family center in Manhattan. How does that go? Grace thought about the visits. Preston arriving in expensive suits, holding Charlotte like a prop, taking photos for his Instagram, playing devoted father for his audience. But with Grace, he was cold, distant, angry. He's polite, appropriate with Charlotte. But with you? He doesn't speak to me unless necessary. He's still trying to get me to drop the lawsuit, threatening me, saying I'll lose everything if I don't. Dr. Phillips wrote that down. Has he threatened you directly? Not in front of the supervisors, but he texts, calls them, always from blocked numbers, telling me I'm destroying our family, that I'm an unfit mother, that he's going to prove it. Do you have these texts? Some, he deletes them or uses apps that disappear. He's careful. Grace, I need to be honest with you. Preston's attorney has provided Dr. Bennett's therapy notes. They're concerning. They paint a picture of someone struggling with anxiety, paranoid thinking, difficulty with reality. Grace's stomach dropped. That's not... I wasn't paranoid. I was being gaslighted. Preston controlled everything. I told Dr. Bennett that, but she framed it like I was imagining things. Did you know Dr. Bennett was recommended by Preston? Yes, he said she was excellent. that she specialized in pregnancy anxiety. I trusted him. Grace, do you see how that looks? Preston chose your therapist. That therapist documented concerns about your mental health. Now those concerns are being used against you in custody court. I know, it was planned, all of it. He was building a case against me in case I ever fought back. Dr. Phillips studied Grace. Do you really believe that? That your husband spent years planning to use your therapy against you? Yes, because that's who Preston is. He's strategic, methodical. Everything he does has a purpose. Grace could see the doubt in Dr. Phillips' face. The question, is Grace really that controlled? Or is she paranoid? This was the problem. Preston's abuse was sophisticated, invisible, the kind that left no bruises except the ones on Grace's brain, the kind that made people think she was crazy instead of credible. Dr. Phillips left after 3 hours. Grace felt defeated, exposed, like she'd failed some test she didn't know she was taking. That night, Grace couldn't sleep. Charlotte was finally sleeping in 4-hour stretches. But Grace was awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Dr. Phillips' face, the doubt, the question marks. What if people didn't believe her? What if the evaluation went against her? What if Preston won? Grace got up, went to Catherine's kitchen, sat in the dark. Her phone buzzed. Block number. She answered anyway. Knew it was Preston. Grace. His voice was soft, intimate. You can't win this. You know that, right? Stop calling me. I'm trying to help you. If you drop the lawsuit, I'll agree to joint custody. 50-50. We can co-parent. Both be in Charlotte's life. You tried to kill me, Preston. No, I made a mistake. One mistake. And you're trying to destroy my life over it. Is that fair? Grace wanted to scream, wanted to throw her phone, wanted to reach through the line and shake him. Fair? You gave me a brain injury. You're using my therapy notes against me. You're trying to take my baby. Where's the fairness in that? Grace, I'm giving you a chance. One chance. Drop the lawsuit. Accept joint custody, or I promise you I will take Charlotte. I will prove you're unfit, and you will lose everything. He hung up. Grace sat in the dark, shaking, furious, terrified. She found herself in the bathroom, sitting in the empty tub, fully clothed, like she had at the hospital, like she'd done at Catherine's after particularly bad days. This was her safe space, her place to fall apart, where no one could see her, where she didn't have to be strong or brave or competent. She sat there for an hour, maybe more. Lost track of time, just sat in the tub, wearing her pajamas, crying silently so Charlotte wouldn't wake. She thought about giving up, about dropping the lawsuit, about accepting Preston's terms. It would be easier, safer, less painful. But then what? Then Charlotte grows up thinking it's normal, thinking her father's control is love, thinking women should accept abuse to keep the peace, thinking she should make herself small to make men comfortable. No, Grace couldn't do that, wouldn't do that, even if she lost, even if Preston took everything. She had to try. For Charlotte, for herself, for all the women who couldn't fight. She heard footsteps. Catherine appeared in the bathroom doorway, didn't ask questions, just sat on the edge of the tub. I can't do this, Grace whispered. I'm not strong enough. You're doing it right now. That's all strength is. Showing up even when you want to quit. Preston called, threatened me, said he's going to take Charlotte, said he can prove I'm unfit. He's trying to scare you into giving up. That's what abusers do. They can't win on facts, so they win on fear. What if he's right? What if I am unfit? What if my TBI makes me a bad mother? Grace, look at me. Catherine's voice was fierce. You are an excellent mother. You feed Charlotte. You comfort her. You protect her. You show up every day despite pain and exhaustion and trauma. That's not unfitness. That's heroism. Grace wanted to believe her. Tried to, but the doubt was there. Planted by Preston, watered by Dr. Bennett, growing in the dark places of Grace's mind. She eventually went back to bed, lay next to Charlotte's bassinet, watched her daughter sleep, memorized her face, her tiny hands, her perfect ears, everything. If Preston took her, Grace wanted to remember. wanted to carry every detail, every moment, every second they had together. Charlotte woke at 3 a.m., hungry. Grace fed her, changed her, rocked her back to sleep, did all the things mothers do, all the small, invisible, essential things. And in that moment, Grace understood. This was the fight, not the courtroom, not the lawyers, not the money. This, showing up for her daughter, over and over, no matter how hard it got, no matter how scared she was, no matter what Preston threatened. She was Charlotte's mother. That was everything. That was worth fighting for, worth risking everything for, worth losing everything for if necessary. The next morning, Grace called Daniel. I'm not dropping the lawsuit. I don't care what Preston threatens. We're going all the way. Are you sure this is going to get ugly? I'm sure. He tried to break me. He failed. I'm done being scared. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, okay, then let's hit him with everything we have. Discovery, depositions, financial records. We're going to expose every secret, every lie, every nasty thing he's ever done. Do it. Grace hung up. Felt different. Not less scared, still terrified, but determined, fierce, like Patricia, the nurse, had said. Terror that made you fierce instead of frozen. Elena came over later with lunch. Found Grace sorting through old photos. Pictures from before Preston, from college, from her gallery shows, from when she was someone else. What are you doing? Elena asked. Remembering who I was before him. Elena sat down, looked through the photos. God, look at you, so confident, so, you. I want to be her again. You can be, you are. She's still in there. Grace picked up a photo from her first gallery show. She was 23, wearing jeans and a paint-stained shirt, standing next to her work, grinning, proud. I sold 3 paintings that night, Grace said, for real money. I felt like a real artist, like I mattered. You still matter. I know, but I forgot for a while. Preston made me forget. Then remember every day. Remember that you're brilliant and talented and strong. Remember that you survived. Grace put the photo on Catherine's refrigerator. Reminder, anchor, proof that she'd been someone before Preston, that she could be someone after him too. That afternoon, Preston came for his supervised visit, the family center in Manhattan. Neutral ground, a supervisor named Maria sat in the corner, taking notes, making sure everything was appropriate. Preston held Charlotte, took selfies with her, posted them to Instagram with captions about being a devoted father, about missing his daughter, about fighting for his family. Grace watched from across the room, saw how he performed, how he knew exactly what to do, how to look like the victim, like the good guy, like the father being kept from his child by a vindictive mother. After the visit, Preston approached Grace. Maria was watching. He smiled, warm, concerned. Grace, we need to talk about Charlotte's future. We're talking through lawyers. This isn't about lawyers. This is about our daughter. His voice was loud enough for Maria to hear. Reasonable, caring. I want what's best for her. Don't you? Yes, which is why she's not living with someone who throws things at people's heads. Preston's smile didn't waver, but his eyes went cold. You're going to regret this, I promise you. You're going to lose everything. He walked away, left Grace shaking. Charlotte started crying. Sensing at Grace's distress, Grace held her close, whispered, "It's okay, baby. We're okay. We're going to be okay." But she wasn't sure if that was true, wasn't sure if they would be okay, wasn't sure of anything anymore, except that she had to keep fighting, had to keep showing up, had to keep trying, even if trying meant sitting in bathtubs fully clothed at 3 a.m., even if it meant breaking down in parking lots, even if it meant fighting every single day for something that should have been hers without question. She was Charlotte's mother. That was worth everything. Worth every fight, every tear, every moment of terror that made her fierce instead of frozen. Daniel Berkowitz's discovery process was brutal. He subpoenaed everything, Preston's financial records, his business emails, his text messages, his phone records, everything. Grace sat in Daniel's office 2 months after Charlotte's birth. Postpartum fog was lifting. Her brain was healing. She could think more clearly now, process information better. The tremor in her hand was almost gone. Daniel spread documents across his conference table. Grace, I need to show you something. He pulled up Preston's financial records, accounts Grace had never seen, didn't know existed. Preston has been transferring money, large amounts, into offshore accounts since before you were married. Grace leaned forward, studied the numbers. How much? $40 million, over 6 years, hidden from you, from the IRS, from everyone. Why? Insurance policy, if you ever tried to divorce him, he could claim he had less money than he actually does. You'd get less in the settlement. Grace felt sick. Preston had been planning this for 6 years, planning for her to leave, or planning to leave her. Either way, he'd been hiding money the entire time they were married. There's more, Daniel said, pulled up emails. Preston hired a private investigator to follow you. 6 months before the assault, the investigator tracked your movements, who you talked to, where you went, everything. Grace read the emails, detailed reports about her coffee dates with Elena, her doctor's appointments, her trips to the grocery store, everything documented, everything reported to Preston. I knew he tracked my phone, Grace said, but I didn't know about this. It gets worse. Daniel pulled up more documents. Remember Dr. Bennett, your therapist? Of course, she's Preston's cousin, third cousin. They're related. She should never have taken you as a patient. It's a conflict of interest. And Grace, she was sending Preston reports about your sessions, about what you said, about everything. The room spun. Dr. Bennett was Preston's cousin, had been reporting to him. Everything Grace had said in therapy, every fear, every doubt, every moment of vulnerability, Preston knew all of it. That's illegal, Grace said. That's a violation of patient confidentiality. It absolutely is, and we're going to use it. But Grace, this means everything in those therapy notes is tainted. She wasn't treating you. She was gathering evidence for Preston. Grace couldn't breathe. The betrayal was enormous. She'd trusted Dr. Bennett, had told her things she'd never told anyone, about her fears, her doubts about the marriage, her suspicion that Preston was controlling her. And Dr. Bennett had twisted it all, made Grace sound paranoid when she was actually right. Did Preston pay her? Grace asked. $50,000, paid through a shell company, but we traced it. Grace put her head in her hands. He planned everything, the therapist, the private investigator, the hidden money, all of it. He was building a trap, waiting for me to step into it. And you did. But Grace, you also did the smartest thing possible. You told the truth. You got help. You fought back. And now we have evidence of what he did. Catherine was at the meeting too. She'd been quiet, listening, taking it all in. Now she spoke. Daniel, this is conspiracy. This is fraud. This is criminal, isn't it? Potentially, the therapy confidentiality violation, the hidden assets, the surveillance, all of it could be criminal. But that's for the DA to decide. Right now, we focus on the civil case, on making sure Grace gets everything she deserves. Grace tried to process, tried to understand the scope of what Preston had done. It wasn't just the trophy, it wasn't just control, it was systematic, planned, methodical, years of building a case against her, years of making sure that if she ever tried to leave, he'd win. Except she'd done something he didn't plan for. She'd reported him. She'd pressed charges. She'd filed a lawsuit. She'd fought back instead of running away like Adrian. And now all his careful planning was working against him. What happens now? Grace asked. Now we depose Preston. We ask him about all of this. On the record, under oath, he'll lie. That's what narcissists do. And then we catch him in the lies. Show the jury who he really is. Preston's deposition was scheduled for a week later. Grace wasn't allowed to be there, but Daniel recorded it, showed her the video afterward. Preston looked confident, relaxed, like he was in control. Marcus Brennan sat next to him, coaching, advising, protecting. Daniel started gently. Mr. Caldwell, were you married before you married Grace? Preston hesitated, just a fraction. Yes, briefly. To Adrian Spencer? Yes. Why didn't you tell Grace about your first marriage? It didn't come up. It was in the past. Not relevant. Did you know Adrian had a restraining order against you? Marcus Brennan interrupted. Don't answer that. Mr. Caldwell, I'll ask again. Did you know about the restraining order? I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right not to answer. Daniel smiled. Let's talk about Dr. Claire Bennett. She was Grace's therapist, correct? Yes, Grace was struggling with anxiety. I wanted her to get help. Did you know Dr. Bennett is your third cousin? Preston's expression flickered. I didn't remember that. It's a distant relation. Did you pay Dr. Bennett $50,000? I don't recall. Let me refresh your memory. Daniel pulled out bank records. This is a wire transfer from your shell company to Dr. Bennett's account. $50,000, 6 months into Grace's therapy. What was that for? I'd have to check my records. Mr. Caldwell, did Dr. Bennett provide you with reports about Grace's therapy sessions? I want to consult with my attorney. Did you hire a private investigator to follow your wife? No. Mr. Caldwell, I have emails from you to a private investigation firm requesting surveillance on Grace Whitman Caldwell, paid for with your credit card. Are you saying those emails are fake? Preston's jaw tightened. I was concerned about her mental health. I wanted to make sure she was safe. By having her followed, by documenting her movements, by invading her privacy, I was protecting her. From what? From herself. She wasn't stable. I was worried she might hurt herself. Or the baby. Grace, watching the video, felt rage. Pure, burning rage. Preston was rewriting everything, making himself the hero, making Grace the problem, making his abuse sound like care. But Daniel was relentless. He went through everything. The hidden money, the offshore accounts, the surveillance, the therapy betrayal, the pattern with Adrian, every secret, every lie, every manipulation. By the end of the deposition, Preston looked rattled. Not broken, but cracked. Like Daniel had found the weak spots and was systematically destroying them. How did he do? Grace asked when the video ended. Terribly. He lied. He contradicted himself. He invoked the Fifth Amendment multiple times. The jury's going to hate him. When is the trial? 4 months. We'll be ready. 4 months. Grace would be 6 months postpartum. Charlotte would be half a year old. Her TBI would be healed. She'd be stronger, clearer, ready. That night, Grace looked at herself in the mirror. Really looked. Not at her reflection, at herself, who she was now. After everything, her scar was faded, barely visible, but she knew it was there. Permanent reminder, not of trauma, of survival. Her body was different. Post-pregnancy, post-C-section, softer, stronger, changed. Her eyes were different too. Older, wiser, sadder but fiercer, like she'd seen something terrible and come through it anyway. She wasn't the woman from the gallery photos, the confident 23-year-old who didn't know what abuse looked like, who thought she was invincible. But she wasn't the woman in the trophy room either. The one who'd made herself small, who'd accepted control as love, who'd doubted her own reality. She was someone new, someone forged in fire, someone who'd been broken and put herself back together, someone who fought. Grace liked this person, this fierce, damaged, determined person, this mother, this survivor, this fighter. She touched her scar, whispered to herself, "You did it. You survived. You're still here." Charlotte cried from the nursery. Grace went to her, picked her up, held her close. Charlotte was bigger now, 5 months old, rolling over, laughing, becoming a person. "Your daddy is a bad man," Grace whispered. "But you don't have to be like him. You can be like your grandmother. Strong, brilliant, fierce. You can be anything." Charlotte grabbed Grace's finger, held on tight, like she understood, like she knew her mother would protect her. No matter what, Grace rocked her, sang to her, made promises, promises about safety, about love, about never letting anyone make her small, about teaching her to value her herself, about showing her what real love looked like, not control, not possession, love. She put Charlotte back to sleep, stood in the doorway watching her breathe. This tiny person, this reason for everything, this proof that something good could come from something terrible. Grace had carried Charlotte through assault, through brain injury, through the worst moments of her life, and Charlotte had survived too, had thrived, had grown, had become exactly who she was supposed to be. If Charlotte could survive all that, Grace could survive the trial, could stand up in front of strangers, could tell her story, could face Preston one more time, could fight for justice, for herself, for Charlotte, for all the women who couldn't. She was ready. The trial started on a Monday in November. Grace wore a navy suit, professional, serious. The kind of outfit that said, "I'm credible, believe me." Charlotte was 6 months old, sitting up, eating solids, sleeping through most nights. Grace's TBI symptoms were minimal. She could think clearly, speak without slurring, remember things. She was healed. Not the same as before, but whole again, different but functional. The courthouse was packed. Media, spectators, people who wanted to see the millionaire face his pregnant wife, people who loved drama, people who needed to believe Grace or Preston, people who had their own stories of abuse, people who thought Grace was lying for money. The jury was selected over 2 days, 12 people, 8 women, 4 men, mixed ages, mixed backgrounds. They would decide. They would determine if Preston owed Grace millions, if he was guilty of assault, if justice existed. Daniel's opening statement was powerful, clear, direct. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a simple case. Preston Caldwell threw a polo trophy at his pregnant wife's head. He caused a traumatic brain injury, a subdural hematoma. He could have killed her, could have killed their unborn child. And when she called for help, he tried to cover it up, tried to make her look crazy, tried to take her baby. This is a case about power, about control, about what happens when a rich man thinks he can hurt a woman and get away with it. We're here to prove he can't. Marcus Brennan's opening was different, sympathetic, emotional. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a tragedy, a marriage falling apart. Preston Caldwell loves his wife, loves his daughter. Yes, he made a mistake, a terrible mistake. He threw an object in anger. It hit Grace. He regrets it deeply. But Grace is trying to destroy him, to take millions of dollars, to use their daughter as a weapon, to punish him for one moment of anger in an otherwise loving relationship. This isn't justice. This is revenge. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Witness after witness, evidence after evidence. The story told and retold from every angle. Jennifer Walsh testified first, the EMT who'd responded to the call. When I arrived, Mrs. Caldwell was conscious but confused. She had a significant laceration to her left temple, blood loss. The injury pattern was consistent with blunt force trauma. She told me her husband threw a trophy at her. She was clear, coherent, specific. I documented everything. Marcus Brennan cross-examined. Miss Walsh, isn't it true that head trauma can cause confusion? False memories? Yes, but Mrs. Caldwell's story never changed. She told me the same thing at the scene, in the ambulance, at the hospital. That consistency indicates accuracy. Dr. Catherine Whitman testified, not as mother, as neurosurgeon. I reviewed my daughter's CT scan. The subdural hematoma was significant. 15 milliliters of blood between the skull and brain. The location and size indicated a high-force impact. This wasn't a simple fall. This was a violent blow to the head. Could it have been accidental? Possible, but unlikely. The trajectory, the force, the specific location, all indicate an aimed throw, not an accidental impact. Dr. Hayes testified about Grace's recovery, her current neurological status, her prognosis. Mrs. Caldwell has made excellent progress. Her cognitive function is good. She has some residual short-term memory issues, some difficulty with complex tasks. But overall, she's functional, independent, capable. Dr. Hayes, is the injury permanent? Some effects may be permanent. The brain is plastic. It adapts. But trauma changes it. Mrs. Caldwell will always have this injury, always have this history, always have this risk. Adriana Spencer testified. Via video again, her face on a large screen, her story filling the courtroom. Preston was charming at first, attentive, generous. Then slowly he became controlling, monitoring my phone, questioning my friends, isolating me. When I resisted, he became violent, threw things, at walls, then at me. The violence escalated. The second time, I almost died. I had a subdural hematoma, just like Grace. He has a pattern. Marcus Brennan attacked her credibility. Miss Spencer, you signed a non-disclosure agreement. You're violating it by testifying. I don't care. You're risking financial penalties, legal action. Why? Because Grace is doing what I couldn't do. She's fighting back. And because if I'd spoken up 8 years ago, maybe she wouldn't be here. Maybe Preston would have faced consequences. Maybe he would have stopped. Isn't it true you received $200,000 in your divorce settlement? Yes. So you profited from your accusations? I survived my accusations. There's a difference. The most damaging testimony came from Preston's former business partner, a man named Richard Hoffman. Daniel had found him during discovery. Richard had left Preston's venture capital firm 3 years ago, left angry, left with stories. Preston has a temper, Richard had testified, in private, never in public. But in the office, behind closed doors, he'd throw things. Phones, staplers, coffee mugs. He threw a laptop once, shattered it, then made his assistant clean it up and buy a new one. Did you ever see him direct this anger at a person? Once, an intern made a mistake on a presentation. Preston threw a 3-hole punch at him, hit him in the shoulder. The intern quit the next day. We gave him a settlement, made him sign an NDA. How much? $25,000 to stay quiet about being assaulted by his boss. The courtroom buzzed. Preston's face was stone. Marcus Brennan was furious. This was new information, devastating information. Elena testified about Grace's state before and after Preston, about the isolation, the control, the gradual disappearance of Grace's personality. She stopped painting, stopped seeing friends, stopped having opinions. It was like watching someone fade, like she was being erased. Did you say anything? I tried, but Grace defended him, made excuses. That's what abuse does. It makes you protect your abuser. Finally, Grace testified. She'd been dreading this, practicing with Daniel for weeks, knowing that everything depended on this, on whether the jury believed her, liked her, saw her as credible. She took the stand, swore to tell the truth, looked at the jury, 12 strangers who held her future in their hands. Daniel started gently. Grace, tell the jury about your relationship with Preston, how it began. Grace told the story, the whirlwind romance, the charm, the attention, how special he made her feel, how lucky she thought she was. When did things change? Slowly, after we got married. Little things at first. He didn't like my friends, thought they were bad influences. He wanted me to focus on our marriage, on him. I thought that was normal, romantic even. What else changed? He started monitoring my phone, said it was for safety. He controlled the money, said it was better if he managed our finances. He chose my clothes, my schedule, my activities. He made me see a therapist he selected, Dr. Bennett. Did you know Dr. Bennett was his cousin? No, not until Daniel discovered it. I trusted Preston. I thought he was helping me. Tell the jury about the night of the assault. Grace took a breath, touched her scar, an unconscious gesture. The jury noticed. We hosted the Vanderbilts for dinner. During dinner, Preston was talking about a Monet painting we own. He said it was from 1873. I corrected him, gently, said I thought it was 1874. The Vanderbilts complimented my knowledge. Preston smiled, laughed, seemed fine. What happened after the guests left? Preston told me to come to his study, the trophy room. He was angry, said I'd embarrassed him, made him look stupid. I tried to apologize, but he kept getting angrier. Then he picked up the polo trophy, the one from his recent win, and he looked at me, not through me, at me. I saw him calculate, saw him decide, then he threw it. What did you do? I tried to duck, but I was 7 months pregnant, slow. The trophy hit my temple. I felt it crack, heard it. I fell. There was blood, so much blood. The baby was kicking. I thought, he's killed us. He's killed us both. Grace was crying. Real tears. Not performed, just remembered. The jury was riveted. Several women were crying too. What did Preston do? Nothing, he just stood there watching me bleed. Then he went to the bar, poured himself scotch, told me I was being dramatic. That head wounds always bleed like that. Did he call for help? No, I called my mother. She told me to call 911. I did. Preston told the EMTs I fell. But I told them the truth. He threw it. I watched him aim. Daniel paused. Let the testimony sit. Let the jury absorb it. Then, Grace, why are you here? What do you want? I want Preston to admit what he did. I want him to face consequences. I want other women to know they can fight back, that they can survive, that they're worth more than what their abusers say they are. And I want my daughter to grow up knowing her mother fought, that she stood up, that she didn't accept abuse as love. Thank you, Grace. Marcus Brennan's cross-examination was brutal. He attacked everything: Grace's memory, her motives, her credibility. Ms. Caldwell, isn't it true you have a traumatic brain injury that affects your memory? I have some short-term memory issues, but I remember that night perfectly. How can you be sure? How can you trust your memory when your brain was damaged? Because I told the same story immediately after it happened, before the brain injury, before any treatment. The EMTs documented it. The hospital documented it. My story hasn't changed. Mrs. Caldwell, you signed a prenuptial agreement. You get nothing if you divorce Preston. Isn't this lawsuit just about money? This lawsuit is about justice, about Preston facing consequences for what he did. But you're asking for $10 million. That's a lot of justice. That's what my brain is worth, what my career is worth, what raising a child alone with a disability is worth, what 6 years of abuse is worth. 6 years? You stayed for 6 years. If it was so terrible, why didn't you leave? Grace looked at him, then at the jury. Because leaving is dangerous. Because abuse doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, systematic. By the time you realize what's happening, you're trapped. You have no money, no friends, no support. You doubt your own reality. You think maybe you deserve it. Maybe you're crazy. Maybe he's right. That's what abuse does. It makes you stay. And when you finally try to leave, it tries to kill you. The courtroom was silent. Grace's words hung in the air. Truth, raw, undeniable. Marcus tried to recover. Mrs. Caldwell, did you ever see a doctor about these supposed mental health issues before Dr. Bennett? No. So Dr. Bennett was the first professional to diagnose you with anxiety and paranoid thinking? Dr. Bennett wasn't treating me. She was gathering evidence for Preston. She was his cousin, his spy. Everything she wrote was designed to make me look unstable. That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof? Yes, Daniel found the wire transfer, $50,000 from Preston to Dr. Bennett, payment for betraying her patient. Marcus had no response to that. He sat down. Preston testified last. Confident, charming, apologetic in all the right ways. I love Grace. I love our daughter. Yes, I made a terrible mistake. I threw something in anger. It hit Grace. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Mr. Caldwell, did you aim at Grace's head? No, absolutely not. I threw the trophy at the wall. Grace moved, it hit her. It was an accident. Why didn't you call for help immediately? I was in shock. I didn't realize how badly she was hurt. I thought she was exaggerating. When I saw the blood, I knew it was serious. But she'd already called her mother, already called 911. Daniel's cross-examination destroyed him. Mr. Caldwell, you testified that you threw the trophy at the wall. But the trophy was found 8 feet from where Grace was injured. The wall is 15 feet in the opposite direction. How do you explain that? I don't remember exactly. Everything happened so fast. Mr. Caldwell, Did you know Dr. Bennett was your cousin when you recommended her to Grace? I, I don't recall. You don't recall if your therapist was your family member? Let me refresh your memory. Daniel pulled out documents. Family tree. Dr. Bennett is your third cousin. Your grandmother and her grandmother were sisters. You grew up together, went to the same family reunions. Are you saying you forgot that? It's a distant relation. I didn't think it mattered. Did you pay Dr. Bennett $50,000? That was a loan for her practice. A loan? Do you have a loan agreement? Promissory note? Any documentation? It was informal between family. Mr. Caldwell, did Dr. Bennett provide you with information about Grace's therapy sessions? She expressed concerns as a family member. She was worried about Grace. So she violated patient confidentiality to gossip with you? That's not what happened. Mr. Caldwell, were you married before you married Grace? Preston's jaw tightened. Yes. To Adrian Spencer? Yes. Did Adrian also suffer a subdural hematoma during your marriage? That was an accident. She fell. Just like Grace? Yes. Mr. Caldwell, what are the odds that two wives both fall and both suffer the same rare injury to the same location on their heads? Preston had no answer. Daniel continued. The hidden money, the offshore accounts, the private investigator, the surveillance, the pattern, every secret, every lie, every manipulation. By the end, Preston looked rattled, caught, exposed. Closing arguments were the next day. Daniel spoke first. Ladies and gentlemen, this trial isn't complicated. Preston Caldwell threw a trophy at his pregnant wife's head. He gave her a traumatic brain injury. He could have killed her, could have killed their baby. And when she reported him, he tried to destroy her credibility, tried to take her child, tried to make her look crazy. He failed, because the truth is simple. The evidence is clear. Preston Caldwell is an abuser, a liar, a man who thinks his money makes him untouchable. We're here to prove it doesn't, to prove that justice exists even for rich men, to prove that women like Grace deserve to be believed, deserve to be protected, deserve compensation for what was taken from them. We're asking you for $10 million, for her medical bills, her lost career, her pain and suffering, her future with a brain injury, her years of abuse. It's not enough. No amount of money is enough. But it's something. It's justice, and Grace deserves justice. Marcus Brennan's closing was emotional, sympathetic. Ladies and gentlemen, Preston Caldwell is not a monster. He's a man who made a mistake, a terrible mistake. He threw something in anger. It hit his wife. He regrets it deeply. But Grace is asking you to destroy him, to take $10 million, to punish him forever for one moment. That's not justice. That's revenge. Yes, Preston should face consequences, but not this. Not financial ruin, not being labeled an abuser for life. He loves his wife, loves his daughter. He wants his family back. He wants to make amends. Give him that chance, please. The jury deliberated for 2 days, 48 hours of waiting. Grace stayed in a hotel near the courthouse. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Just waited, paced, prayed, made bargains with the universe. Charlotte was with Catherine, safe, loved, unaware that her entire future was being decided by 12 strangers. The call came on Thursday afternoon. The jury had reached a verdict. They filed back into the courtroom. 12 faces, unreadable. Grace held Daniel's hand under the table, tried to breathe, tried to prepare for either outcome. The foreman stood, a woman, 50-something, serious face. In the matter of Caldwell versus Caldwell, we the jury find in favor of the plaintiff, Grace Whitman Caldwell. Grace gasped, tears, relief. Daniel squeezed her hand. We award compensatory damages in the amount of $4 million and punitive damages in the amount of $8 million. Total award, $12 million. The courtroom erupted. Grace was crying. Catherine was crying. Elena was crying. They'd won. They'd actually won. Preston's face was stone. No emotion, no reaction. Just cold calculation. Planning his appeal already. But Grace didn't care. She'd won. She'd stood up. She'd told her truth. And 12 strangers had believed her, had valued her, had said her pain was worth millions. They left the courthouse through a side entrance. Media everywhere, cameras, questions. Grace didn't answer. Just walked to the car, got in, drove away. Catherine drove back to Brooklyn, to the brownstone, to home. Elena met them there with Charlotte. Grace took her daughter, held her, breathed her in. "We won, baby girl, we won." Charlotte grabbed Grace's face, smiled, oblivious to what had just happened, to the history that had been made, to the justice that had been served. Grace spent the evening quietly. No celebration, just relief, exhaustion, the understanding that it was over. The fight was done. She'd survived. That night, she called Preston. One last time. From her own phone, her own decision. "Hello, Grace." His voice was cold, distant. "I didn't do this to hurt you, Preston. I did this to save myself, to save Charlotte, to make sure you faced consequences. You destroyed my reputation, my business, my life. No, you did that by throwing the trophy, by controlling me, by thinking you could hurt me and get away with it. I'll appeal. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You lost. Accept it. Move on. Be a better father to Charlotte than you were a husband to me." She hung up, blocked his number, deleted his contact, erased him from her phone. Symbolic. Small but important. She was free. Finally, completely free. 6 months after the trial, Grace stood in an empty gallery space in Brooklyn. High ceilings, natural light, exposed brick. Perfect. "I'll take it," she told the realtor. The settlement money had come through. $12 million after legal fees, after taxes, still millions. More than Grace had ever imagined having. She'd bought a brownstone in Park Slope, near Catherine, near Elena, a home of her own, with a studio in the attic, space to paint again, space to create, space to be herself. And now this gallery, Grace Whitman Gallery, her name, not Caldwell. She'd changed it back, reclaimed herself. The gallery would show her work, other artists' work, women's work, survivors' work, art that told truth, that processed trauma, that celebrated survival. Charlotte was 1 year old now, walking, talking, and becoming a person. She looked like Grace. Same eyes, same smile, nothing of Preston except his last name. And even that would change eventually. Preston had appealed, lost, appealed again, lost again. The verdict stood. $12 million, justice confirmed multiple times. He'd remarried, some socialite from Manhattan, 26 years old. Grace watched carefully, waited for signs, for patterns, ready to intervene if necessary, ready to warn the new wife if she saw warning signs. But that wasn't Grace's responsibility anymore. She'd done what she could, exposed Preston, made his abuse public, created a record. The next woman would have resources, information, warning. Elena came over to the gallery space, looked around, grinned. "This is perfect, Grace, absolutely perfect." "I'm terrified." "Good. Best art comes from a terror." Catherine arrived with Charlotte. The baby toddled over to Grace. "Mama, Mama." Grace picked her up, kissed her head, showed her the space. "This is Mama's gallery, where Mama will make art, where other people will come see art, where beauty lives." Charlotte didn't understand, but she smiled anyway. Pointed at the light coming through the windows. "Pretty. Yes, baby. Pretty." That evening, Grace stood in her studio, canvas in front of her, paints ready. She hadn't painted in 7 years. Not since Preston. Not since she'd learned to make herself small. She didn't know what to paint, didn't know where to start. So she just started. Brush to canvas, red, the color of blood, of anger, of life. She painted for 3 hours, lost time, lost herself in the work. When she stepped back, she didn't recognize what she'd created. Abstract, chaotic, beautiful. It looked like trauma, like survival, like a brain healing, like a woman becoming herself again. Elena came up to the studio later, brought wine, looked at the painting, was quiet for a long moment. That's powerful, Grace. It's angry. It should be. You're allowed to be angry. For how long? As long as you need. There's no timeline for healing. Grace looked at the painting, at the red and black and white, at the chaos that somehow made sense. I thought after the trial I'd feel different, fixed, whole, but I don't. I'm still angry, still scared, still broken in places. You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference. How do you know when you're healed? You don't. You just keep going, keep painting, keep showing up, keep being brave. And one day you realize the good days outnumber the bad, that you're laughing more than crying, that you're living instead of just surviving. Grace nodded, wanted to believe it, tried to. 2 months later, the Grace Whitman Gallery opened. Small opening, friends, family, artists, survivors, people who understood, people who'd fought their own battles, people who got it. Grace showed 10 pieces, all from the past 2 months, all processing, all healing, all truth. The centerpiece was a large canvas, the one from that first night, red and black and white, chaos and order, destruction and creation. She titled it Trophy Room. People understood immediately, recognized the metaphor, the history, the survival. A woman approached Grace, 40-something, expensive clothes, familiar somehow. Grace Whitman? Yes. I'm Sandra Morrison. I'm his current wife. Ex-wife now. Grace's heart jumped. Are you okay? I am now. I left him last week, saw the pattern, read about your case, reached out to Daniel Berkowitz. He's helping me. Did he hurt you? Not yet, but he was starting to. The control, the monitoring, the isolation. I saw where it was going. Your trial gave me a roadmap, showed me what to document, how to leave, how to fight. Grace hugged her. This stranger who wasn't really a stranger. This woman who'd walked into the same trap, who'd escaped before it killed her. You're brave, Grace said. You're braver. You fought when fighting was impossible. You made it possible for the rest of us. They talked for an hour. Sandra bought 3 paintings, gave Grace her number. In case you ever wanted to start a support group for survivors, for women who have been through this. Grace thought about it. Maybe that was her next step. Gallery by day, support group by night, helping other women. Using her story, her survival, her strength. That night, Grace stood in Charlotte's room, watched her daughter sleep. Charlotte was bigger now, more independent, strong, fierce already. Your father tried to break me, Grace whispered. He failed, and I'm going to make sure you never let anyone break you. I'm going to teach you to value yourself, to trust your instincts, to run from men who try to control you, to fight back when fighting is necessary, to know that survival isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing you can do. Charlotte slept peacefully, unaware, innocent. Grace went to her own room, sat by the window, looked out at Brooklyn, at her neighborhood, her life, her freedom. She touched her scar, faded now, almost invisible, but there, always there, permanent reminder, not of trauma, of survival, of fighting back, of winning. She thought about the woman in the gallery photos from college, the confident 23-year-old, the artist, the fighter. Grace wasn't her anymore, could never be her again. Too much had happened. Too much had changed. But Grace liked who she was now better. This version had survived the impossible, had protected her daughter, had stood up to power, had won. This version was stronger, braver, fiercer. This version knew what she was capable of, knew she could survive anything, knew she was worth fighting for. The phone rang. Daniel Berkowitz. Grace, I have news. Preston's lawyers want to settle the custody case. Full custody to you. He gets supervised visitation once a month. He's giving up. Grace closed her eyes, felt tears, relief, victory. Why? His reputation is destroyed. His business is failing. He's being investigated for financial fraud. He can't win, so he's giving up, moving to California, starting over. What about Charlotte? He's signing away most of his parental rights. You'll have full custody, full control. He's out of your life. Out of her life, the words were beautiful, impossible, real. Thank you, Daniel, for everything. You did this, Grace. You fought. You won. I just helped. After they hung up, Grace sat in the dark, processing, understanding, accepting. She'd won. Completely. Totally. Preston was gone. Charlotte was safe. Justice had been served. It was over. Finally, completely over. Grace went to her studio, picked up a brush, started a new painting. Not red this time. Blue. The color of water, of cleansing, of beginning again. She painted until dawn, until Charlotte woke, until Elena came over with coffee, until Catherine called to check in, until life continued. Normal, beautiful, free. This was healing, not the absence of pain, but the ability to feel joy despite it, the ability to create beauty from trauma, the ability to keep going, keep fighting, keep living. Grace Whitman was 33 years old, a mother, an artist, a survivor, a fighter. She'd been broken, she'd been beaten, she'd been nearly destroyed, but she'd survived. And survival was everything, was the point, was the victory. She looked at Charlotte playing with blocks, at this tiny human who'd never know fear, who'd never accept control, who'd grow up strong and fierce and free. We did it, baby girl, Grace whispered. We survived. We're free. We're safe. Forever. Looked up, smiled, went back to her blocks, building, creating, living. Grace picked up her brush, joined her daughter in creation, in building something new, something beautiful, something that was entirely their own. The trophy room was empty now, dismantled, sold, gone. In its place, a gallery, a studio, a home, a life, a beginning. 3 years later, Grace stood in the Grace Whitman Gallery at a special exhibition opening. Voices of Survival, art by women who fought back. 30 artists, 30 survivors, 30 stories, all told through art, through beauty, through truth. Catherine stood beside her. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done this without you, Mom. Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. Elena arrived with her girlfriend. New relationship, happy, healthy. This is amazing, Grace. You've built something incredible. Sandra Morrison was there too. She'd shown 2 pieces, abstract works about control and freedom. She was thriving now, divorced, working, healing. Grace, I want you to meet someone. Sandra gestured to a young woman, 20-something, nervous. This is Jessica. She's leaving her husband, needs help. Grace took Jessica's hand, saw herself 3 years ago, scared, broken, desperate. You're going to be okay, Grace said. It doesn't feel like it now, but you will, I promise. Jessica started crying. How do you know? Because I survived. And if I could survive Preston Caldwell, you can survive this. Come on, let me introduce you to some people. We have a support group every Tuesday. We'll help you. Charlotte ran up, 4 years old now, fierce, independent, loved. Mama, Mama, come see my picture. Grace looked at her daughter's drawing, abstract, colorful, beautiful. That's wonderful, baby. What is it? It's us, being strong. Grace hugged her, this tiny human who'd changed everything, who'd given Grace reason to fight, to survive, to thrive. Yes, baby, we're strong always. The gallery filled with people, survivors, supporters, people who understood, people who'd fought their own battles, people who knew that survival wasn't weakness. It was everything. Grace stood in the center of her creation, her gallery, her community, her life, surrounded by beauty made from pain, by strength forged in fire, by women who refused to disappear. She touched her scar, barely visible now, almost gone, but still there, still reminding her of where she'd been, what she'd survived, who she'd become. Not the woman in the trophy room, not the woman who made herself small, not the woman who accepted control as love, but this woman, the one who fought back, who won, who built something beautiful from the wreckage. Grace Whitman, artist, mother, survivor, fighter, free. The trophy room was empty, the trophies scattered, the monuments to dominance dismantled. In their place, art, community, love, life, hope, a beginning that looked nothing like the ending Preston had planned, a future he couldn't control, a story he didn't get to write. This was Grace's story, and she'd written it herself in blood and paint and tears and triumph. She'd survived, and survival was everything. Grace Whitman is 37 now. Charlotte is 4. The gallery is thriving. The support group meets every Tuesday. 15 women so far, all survivors, all fighters, all free. Preston moved to California, remarried again. Grace watches from a distance, ready to help if the pattern repeats, ready to intervene if another woman needs warning. The scar on Grace's temple is barely visible now, but she touches it sometimes, reminder of where she's been, what she survived, who she became. She tells Charlotte the truth, age-appropriate truth, about daddy making a bad choice, about mommy being strong, about how love should never hurt, about how you fight back when fighting is necessary. Charlotte is fierce, independent, unafraid. Everything Grace wishes she'd been at 26. Everything she's teaching her daughter to be. The trophy room is empty, the trophies scattered, the monuments to dominance dismantled. In their place, art, freedom, life. If Grace's story resonated with you, if you believe survivors deserve justice, show your support by hitting that like button. Your engagement helps stories like this reach other women who need to know they're not alone, that fighting back is possible, that survival is strength. Drop a comment telling me what moment hit hardest for you. Was it when Grace finally stood up to Preston? When the jury believed her? When she opened her gallery? Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more true stories of women who refuse to stay silent, who fought impossible battles, who turned their pain into power. Because every share, every subscription, every comment is a vote that says, we believe survivors, we support fighters, we celebrate freedom. Grace survived, and so can you.